We are officially marking 1 year since we birthed the new live TV show from home in the midst of a global pandemic. What an incredible team! We'll be right back.
One read to another.
Oh my God.
Joy, congratulations. You are truly a journalist. I admire the work you do.
Congratulations on 1 year of The Rita. You have informed America, you have strengthened the nation, and you have galvanized people around the country to make sure that we do all that we can to make America live up to its promise. You're the best.
Congratulations, Joy, on your 1 year anniversary. It's just too bad that not much happened this year, so you couldn't show your chops.
My upbringing was pretty much like anybody else's, with a little bit more kinks in it. You know, my father wasn't around. I lost my oldest brother a couple of years ago to the streets, gun violence, but it was a good upbringing because we had each other. I've been on the other end of the spectrum, you know, of the gun. When I was around 13, 14, and getting shot twice, it's kind of scary, but this is why I'm able to do the work on the level that I'm doing it on, because I've been there. That's that trouble, man. Because the people still calling me, though, too, man. You doing your programs and stuff?
Yeah, I've been doing my programs. I don't think any other country has the level of shootings we're having. It's because in America, any disruption to the social structure risks an outbreak of violence because there are so many firearms here in circulation. In an ideal world, every 15, 16, 17-year-old youth in New York City would be less interested in holding guns because they're too busy doing homework and looking at their job promotion and thinking about college. We want people to think about the future. And people who are focused on their own futures and have hope in their future don't think as much about where they're going to buy their next gun.
The governor just declared a state of emergency. Well, we've been in a state of emergency for a long time. To make an announcement about an X amount of money coming into a neighborhood is one part, and it's good news. But it really is not real news. You know, the backlog that exists in the city and state is just horrendous. The amount of, you know, requirements that they put nonprofits through, especially young grassroots nonprofits, just to be able to access the dollars that we need. So the announcements are one thing. The realization is a whole entire another phase.
Cities and communities need an infrastructure for managing all these programs. We have an infrastructure for managing police, very well organized, very well funded. Every city has it. What we don't have is an infrastructure for tying together all the efforts. Organizations have to apply for this money and then demonstrate they can do this work, and they have to develop their own expertise in accounting and real estate and legal services. We make it really hard for neighborhood-based groups to participate in these efforts. So here in New York, both state and city governments have invested a lot more in programs like Man Up, like other pure violence affiliates in the city, which there are about 24 now. But the money is still a small sum compared to what we spend on policing. If you add up everything we spend on police, it's about $11 billion a year. That's a billion with a B. So how do you organize an effort to combat violence without relying solely upon police? And politics of doing that can get rough if we see an increase in shootings or increase in violent crime, like we've seen over the past year. People get nervous and they turn to what they think they know as a solution.
You need help? And things heated up in the streets and the police came, our thing was, what the hell are y'all doing here? Y'all don't care about us. Y'all don't care about us, so y'all don't need to be here. We got this.
There's an over-policing presence in our communities. The police are being deployed to issues that they don't know how to resolve. Most of the issues that the police have to respond to are issues that are able to be talked down. These are issues that can be resolved without the police having to interfere.
Policing were the best and only way to make a neighborhood safe. If we went up to the Upper East Side and walked along Fifth Avenue, we would see a lot of patrol cars, a lot of foot patrols. We'd see police everywhere. Obviously, police are not the only answer to public safety.
Anytime you can get a kid to change his direction of thinking from negative to positive, and you was the one that had something to do with it, makes you feel great inside, because it might not seem like it at the moment, but you just saved somebody's life.
And we're bringing you courtside coverage of Jeff Bezos and his Blue Origin crew as they prepare to launch into space this morning. Taking a look right now, you can see it looks like the control room as they have a little countdown in the corner, about 45 minutes.
Variables and data. A characteristic. The varies from one person or thing to another is called a variable. Examples of variables for humans are height, weight, number of siblings, marital status, and color.
Once they cross that line, feel 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness, but everything else will happen from the ground. We'll watch as the capsule that they're in will separate at a certain point from that booster rocket and then come back down on 3 parachutes, and booster rockets will again kind of light up as it gets closer to the ground to make a soft but dusty landing in the West Texas
The first 3 of these variables yield numerical information and are examples of quantitative variables, and the last 3 yield non-numerical information and are examples of qualitative variables, also called categorical variables.
We're not sure which of the men in her training.
All of them curve, I'm sure.
And the training actually was really cool. They go through this preparation. It's 2 full days.
We cannot arithmetic with such numbers in contrast to those of quantitative variables, categorical variables, qualitative variables, quantitative variables. Quantitative variables can be classified as either discrete or continuous. A discrete variable is a variable whose possible values can be listed, even though the list may continue indefinitely. This property holds, for instance.
Point where people just start paying and going up.
And here we go. Is that the crew? It looks like that might be them walking right now, not into a rocket, but into a Jeep, which we assume is going to take them to what will soon be their next destination, the final destination, about 45 minutes from now, of course, up to the edge of space. It's a suborbital flight, so not going into orbit, going 62 miles up, about 8.5, 9 miles more than Sir Richard Branson's team. Just 9 days
Who's
earlier.
counting now? Not Jeff Bezos,
No,
I'm sure.
I mean, I would anywhere out there would be great for me. Wally Funk standing there, getting ready to go.
Yeah, loading into the... There's Wally Funk right there, 82 years old, to be the oldest person to fly in space. That looks like Jeff Bezos there in the hat. His brother Mark Bezos just got into the car, along with Oliver Damon, 18, youngest person going into space, and also actually... his dad is a paying customer, paying for his son, this 18-year-old, to head out there. They've all been staying at what they're calling the Astronaut Village, and the Blue Origin team has referenced several times the hospitality component that comes along with paying for one of these tickets. So it's basically this astronaut hotel out there where you get trained.
This clear variables are variables possible values capability. Continuous variable is a variable whose possible values from some interval of numbers. Typically, continuous variable involves a measurement of something such as the height of a person, and discrete variable, continuous variable, quantitative variables.
Training program. She basically was among a group of women who passed all the same rigorous criteria that NASA used for selecting astronauts, but because of her gender, she was not allowed to actually become an astronaut and go and take flight. So now here we are, what, half a century later, and she's finally getting that opportunity at age 82. She will be the oldest person to ever go into space. And it is kind of cool to bookend that you also then happen to have the youngest person going into space at 18 years old. Very different story. Jeff Bezos has talked time and time again about how that's really almost symbolic in a way of the future of space travel, how this is sort of paving the way for Oliver's generation when it comes to space tourism, and really when it comes to just exploring space in the future, as it becomes slightly more accessible to the masses. And look, there's a little crowd here of folks along the side. It's like a little
likely mostly people that work there at Blue Origin, they had said would be around.
Little one Jeep parade that's going through. They got the red and blue lights on. Somebody tells me there's no one in their way that stop them. But you never know.
They know the boss is in town.
I think Jeff Bezos does this wherever he goes.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but it is really neat, and kind of the vision of Blue Origin that Jeff Bezos has is that it will be this kind of link to space that is more accessible. You mentioned, of course, that price tag doesn't necessarily mean anybody's just going up on any other random Tuesday, but eventually that is the plan. And also he points to climate change and what's going on Earth as reasons that we're going to need to move some type of industry to space, and he hopes that Blue Origin will be a link to do so. And he's referenced several times that Oliver, the youngest person, headed to space with him today, part of his crew, that 18-year-old. He's referenced him sort of this symbolic bearer of this whole generation, the younger people that will have to continue this for Blue Origin. It's pretty neat to head up there on this first rocket with somebody who's only 18 years old.
Yeah, we're going to be keeping an eye on this, of course, as we get closer and closer to the countdown. It'll be a lot more exciting when they're not in a Jeep and they're actually in a rocket.
It should be pretty soon. We're not seeing too far from launch site 1, we know. This looks like that road, actually, that's going to lead straight up to it, to that big circle with the Blue Origin logo, the feather, which is where they'll be taking off from.
So while we're watching this, we do want to check on the forecast, because that is going to be key, first of all, to whether everything happens, and also to how well we see it.
Yes, Bill, when we were just with you a little bit ago, you mentioned some of that cloud cover that might mean you don't get to see quite as much as we'd like, but it was on the move. So what do we know right now?
But I was happy to see that last shot, because they kind of widened out when they were following the car, and they kind of showed the horizon. You could see that the clouds have lifted up a little bit. There's still some clouds, but I think it's going to be a good scene. I think we're going to get a good viewing angle. You can see on our weather map here, all the gray shows the clouds, and you can just see them kind of sinking to the south, just a little bit left there near the launch site. We still have about a half hour, 45 minutes to the launch, so I think things are looking pretty good for not completely clear skies, but excellent visibility, not just for the people on board the rocket, but for the people that are going to be watching even from miles away. So that really should turn out nice. So
a discrete variable usually involves a count of something, whereas a continuous variable usually involves a measurement of something.
That's kind of why they picked West Texas early in the morning. Typically, you get pretty good weather there, and they're going to get exactly that. And guys, I was thinking about that. You said 11 minutes is the total duration of this, and it's 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness. And I was just thinking of the pressure of trying to plan what you're going to do in 3 to 4 minutes. You're going to get the unbuckle command at some point, and then, what are you going to do? You want that memorable moment. So that'll be kind of fun to watch.
Data.
How on earth do you
the values of a variable for one or more people or things yield data. Thus, the information collected or organized and analyzed by statisticians is data.
What would you do, Bill?
Data.
Well, I would want to go
Like
to Florida, but I
variables
would be
can be
very concerned. I would
classified
practice the
qualitative.
seatbelt click and unclick
Very so,
numerous times
very
because
so.
you don't want to waste a couple minutes with like the seatbelt getting stuck because that would, I'd want my money back.
Yeah, exactly. We actually heard from some of the Blue Origin team that Wally Funk was particularly excited about the somersaults, so we can't wait to get a little.
Of course she is.
Yeah, we can't wait to see some of that.
Some sort
That's
of
tough, though, doing a somersault and then getting back in your seat.
Yeah, I know.
Picture doing that in 3 minutes. You unbuckle, you're doing a somersault with other people all around you, and then you have to get back in your seat. It's going to be like, musical chairs.
Yeah, I know. And we'll get to see it all.
We're just days away from the Olympics, though, so maybe it could be a new Olympic sport, space
Space somersaults.
All right, Bill, thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Continue our coverage. Let's bring in Brad Stone. He's the senior executive editor of Global Technology of Bloomberg News, also the author of Amazon Unbound, Jeff Bezos and the Invention of a Global Empire. Great to have you back with us. You've been covering Jeff Bezos for a long time, every aspect of his life and his career. What do you think at this moment as he is driving to that rocket? It's going through his mind.
It's just absolutely remarkable, Joe. I mean, I remember I wrote the first story about Blue Origin for Newsweek magazine in 2004, and already back then they were talking about New Shepard and this idea of suborbital flight. And the landscape has changed so much. Companies like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, the commercial satellite business has exploded. NASA has turned to private enterprise for the next phase of the U.S. space program. And in some ways, Bezos was prescient, right? He saw all this. He's always loved space. And now here he is putting really, in some ways taking a big personal risk, right? And it's just startling and almost breathtaking to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're talking, Brad, we're seeing, I believe that's the Jeep that we just saw the crew in that is getting nearer and nearer to their rocket here. So Blue Origin, which of course is who's launching this rocket today, New Shepard, was founded in 2000. Let's talk kind of through how the company has expanded in the years since and what this accomplishment means in terms of the company. I mean, I know that there have been a couple flights, there have been quite a few test flights. This actual particular rocket, they call this the stack, which is that propulsion model as well as the capsule. This particular set that we have eyes on right here has actually already flown twice. That's part of what this company is trying to do, is reuse these rockets. Just talk us through a company founded 21 years ago, and they're actually, we see the crew getting out. There they are, nearest to the rocket. We've seen them so far. But just kind of talk us through what this means for Blue Origin as a company as they really, this first human flight happens in about 38 minutes from now, and we see the crew heading up the stairs.
It's a really important benchmark, Savannah, because Blue Origin, not to throw cold water on such a memorable day, but the company hasn't accomplished that much in 2 decades, and now I'm going to lower my voice because here I am in their hangar. But so SpaceX has been bringing astronauts to the ISS and launching commercial satellites. New Shepard, they've been working on it for more than a decade. They've flown it 15 times. And this is a big benchmark, putting actual humans, including a paying customer, on the spacecraft. They also have much larger ambitions. Bezos really wants to build an orbital space company in competition with SpaceX. So they've been working on an orbital rocket called New Glenn. That's a bit delayed. And then bidding for government contracts like the Artemis Moon Lander program, which they also lost and are now contesting, trying to get Congress to get NASA more funding. So, in some ways, because Bezos kept Blue very small, because it limited its head count for many years, they're playing catch up. So today is a big demonstration in its faith in the company and in the company's engineers to basically get them to protect their founder as he blasts off to suborbital space.
All right, we are so appreciative of you being here with us. I think we might come back to you in a little bit. And we know you're there on the ground, so we've got lots more questions for you. Thank you so much, Brad. Let's now bring in Leland Melvin, a retired NASA astronaut who also wrote the book Chasing Space. Leland, we love when you join us. Thanks for being here. All right, we're watching these 4 crew members, soon to be astronauts themselves, ascend these stairs, headed to that capsule that they're going to get on. You've obviously spent more than those 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness that they're about to experience in space, but what's your advice for them as they ascend these stairs and get ready to enter that capsule?
Hey, thanks for having me on. And it's such an exciting time to see an 18-year-old and an 82-year-old ascending stairs to get into a capsule to go to space. And my advice to them is always to be looking out the window, enjoying the moment, enjoying those 2 to 4 minutes. But the thing is that I wanted to do was float something and take a picture of it while I was in space to show something, a trinket from my parents or a wedding ring or something like that. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do that in time to get back in their seats and put their seatbelt on, but that's always something fun to do in space.
That's a great
During
idea.
the interview yesterday, I think they were talking about if they do the selfie in space, definitely have the 18-year-old take the picture. Because that's the best selfie picture. The Wally might surprise us again, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a quick trip, obviously. 10, 11 minutes. They'll spend 3 to 4 minutes weightlessness. What is their body going to go through during this trip? How tough is it when we're talking about pulling G's and things like that? What are they going to be experiencing?
Yeah, when they take off, I think they're gonna get around 3 Gs. They're gonna pull 3 Gs in their body, so they're reclined, so the Gs will kind of go through their chest like this. If it was going through the top of their head, it could make you black out. So I think they've got them relaxed, and the seats are big enough so that G gets distributed on their body, so it's not, point load. And then I think on re-entry, it's about 5.5 Gs that they feel coming back in. Now, I only felt 2.5 coming in. I felt 3 going up, so they're going to experience more than I actually felt on the space shuttle. And I think the other thing that they're going to, it's a sensation of seeing that little bit of curvature of the Earth and knowing that you get this perspective shift on the way that you see humanity. When I went to space, I looked back at the planet, and we were going around the planet every 90 minutes in the sunrise and the sunset every 45. But we were looking at all of humanity, and it just gives you this perspective. It changes the way you feel about the people around you.
Yeah, we heard Jeff Bezos mention that yesterday on the Today Show, something he was sort of looking forward to is that different perspective it can give you. We have a look right now. It looks like something is being written there between the brothers. We have a look at Jeff and Mark Bezos on that show, so you can see the one.
The ever-important Sharpie.
Yeah.
You're talking about space equipment.
Yeah, exactly.
Sharpies and Velcro.
It's a message for someone, maybe he'll show. Yeah, Mark just wrote on his brother's hand something on the palm of his hand, but we could see the 4 members of this crew in this room nearby the capsule that they'll board. Hey, Leland, also a question for you on the landing. So you've seen these videos of the tests of this flight and how it lands back down. 3 parachutes will kind of come off of the little capsule as it re-enters the atmosphere, and then these booster rockets will sort of soften the landing. It'll land in this kind of cloud of dust, just given the desert conditions out here in West Texas. In fact, this capsule was even tested with only 2 of those parachutes deploying to make sure that it would still be safe, and it was. Everything went fine in that test. What do you think about that landing back down and what that's going to feel like for them?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I mean, those parachutes are very, very large for the size of the capsule, as well as the retro rockets firing. So it'll give them, I think total of 5.5 Gs you'll feel, but they're again reclined, and that's going to be coming like through an angle. It's not going to be coming through their head or through the bulk of their body. It's just like a fraction of their body that they're going to feel those 5.5 Gs. So it should be fairly smooth. And Wally's flown so many times. I mean, she's done aerobatics and probably, felt so many Gs in her body after 19,000 hours.
171 minutes, 26 months.
We're assuming that's been the theme of the morning. All right, Leland Melvin, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us your perspective. We really do appreciate it. We do want to bring in.
Have a great day.
You too.
Enjoy.
We do want to bring in retired astronaut Clayton Anderson, also the author of The Ordinary Spaceman. Great to have you with us. Love seeing all of our experts here in their NASA blue talking to us. I mean, what is going through your mind right now? We're in maybe about a half hour away from this launch to know that we're going to see 4 citizens, both billionaire and non-billionaire, heading up to space.
So finishes a quantitative variable, which is also a discrete variable, because it makes sense to take only over first place, second place, and so on. There are only a finite number of possible finish places, thus the information that among the women rated up to and data finish first and second respectively is a discrete quantitative data.
And let's talk about Wally Funk, of course, something that we've been talking about all morning. Really, ever since we found out she was heading on, we've all just been so amazed by her. As Joe was just saying a little bit ago, she's finally getting this chance to go into space. She's one of what was called Mercury 13, a group of female pilots who trained to be astronauts back in the 60s, but never got the chance to launch. Because she was a woman, she's also 82 years old, the oldest person who'll be heading into space. You know what it's like to try over and over again to achieve this dream of getting to space. What would you say to her about this experience for her, about what's about to unfold for her in the next half hour or so?
What kind of data do you receive when you are told your blood type? Blood type is a qualitative variable because its possible values are non-numerical. Therefore, your blood type is
in having a dream and persevering to achieve that dream. And the other thing that I tell people often is that you don't have to be a genius to do this. I certainly am not. I don't have her credentials as a pilot and as a pilot in flight instructor. She's going to do great. It's an honor to be
which is also a discrete variable because its possible values are. Therefore, the number of people in your household is discrete quantitative data. The information plays almanac lists the world iced waterfalls. The list shows that intervals in Venezuela are more than twice as high as ribbon falls in Yosemite, California, which is what kind of data are these heights? Are these quantitative variable, which is also continuous variable because height conceptually be any positive number. Therefore, the waterfall heights are continuous quantitative data.
Well, the flights that I did in the shuttle and the space station and doing spacewalks and that thing are quite a bit different than what they're doing. They're just going to fly up, spend some time in microgravity looking out the window and come back. I would assume that their focus is on emergency procedures, right? What to do if something does go wrong. And then the ingress to the seat and your parachute attachments and all that stuff to make sure that everything is connected properly. And then when it's time to get out of the seat, that you've performed all those functions appropriately so that you unbuckle the correct thing, float around the window for a while, and then get back in, buckled in to come home. And I think Leland's point was really cool, Leland Melvin, in that, hey, take a picture of something floating in front of you in 0 G so you have a real memory to prove that you were there.
I love that piece of advice. Okay, there we can see through the window Wally Funk strapping in. She's in her seat. There's those large windows that we talked about, which is kind of one of those commercial features of this capsule meant for people to buy a ticket and just get to go up and get the view in 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness. Clayton, I know you spent, I think, about 167 days in space, so you have done this, you have done it differently. This isn't quite what it looked like, but you've been up there before. What do you think these four are thinking right now? I mean, this is obviously something that they've either paid for, worked for, or been excited about for quite a long time here, but they're actually strapping in. This is the first human flight on this space vehicle that we've seen quite a few tests of so far, but I mean, these are the first people going up in it. What do you think they're feeling right now as they strap in and lay back and get ready for this booster module to send them up 62 miles from the Earth's surface?
Undoubtedly, they're hugely excited. I would think they have a little bit of anxiety. I did, and I trained for 9 years before my first shuttle launch. I think the young man who's about 18 years old, I think back to when I was 18, the experiences I had, and I'm thinking I would have a little bit of trepidation going on. But I think that their team, quite talented, they're very confident. The anxiety is different. There's no fear, I don't think. It's just they're anxious, right? What am I going to feel like? What's it going to be like? I really don't know. It's going to be the first time I experience this. And those kind of feelings are normal. They're welcome. And it will make this experience that much more special for them.
I don't think that 18-year-old, by the way, has stopped.
Even statisticians occasionally disagree about data type. For example, some classify amounts of money as a discrete data. Say it is continuous data. In most cases, however, data classification is fairly clear and will help you Choose the correct statistical method for
my bid only
analyzing this.
$27 million. You know, my view on this is that commercial spaceflight and getting people into space, if every human could spend a few days in space and then come back and spend a month in a third world country, our perspectives would change. We would all work together a little better on our planet Earth. So that's my take.
Perspective is everything, and certainly going out into space will give you quite the perspective. Clayton Anderson, we appreciate your perspective this morning. Thank you so much for joining us as we prepare to watch this historic launch, and we're looking right now at Wally Funk. We want to bring in Chelsea Goad now. She is a senior writer for Space.com, host of the weekly show Space Chat. I know you were at the Virgin Galactic one just 9 days ago. Now we got this one going on. What's going through your mind as you watch this space race really heat up this July?
Yeah, and compare the two.
Yeah, I mean, truly, I'm just excited to see them go up and come back safely. You know, obviously, there are a lot of pretty major similarities with the Virgin Galactic launch. It's suborbital, there's people on board, they're going up, they're spending a couple minutes in weightlessness and coming back. However, Blue Origin's vehicle, it's not a space plane like Virgin Galactic. It's, you know, it's a capsule on a rocket. It looks more like what we would think of when we think of a spacecraft. So it's a lot different of a design, so I'm really eager to see it safely go up and back. It was an incredible experience to be in person on the ground, watching Virgin Galactic go up and safely return, and I just really hope the same for Blue Origin today.
Let's talk a little bit through that design difference here and what this is going to look like for people. I think that today's is probably going to feel a little bit more dramatic. You're going to really, there's going to be that countdown. You're going to see a blast off, so to speak, see this rocket send this up. And then some of these cool features like this capsule that the crew members are actually in, then kind of fire off itself, detached from this booster module. Walk us through which parts you're sort of looking forward to see, what parts you're going to be kind of watching for, maybe holding your breath on. You know, we just were asking Clayton, a former retired astronaut, what he would be feeling right now. I mean, you're about to literally blast off. Just kind of walk us through what it is that you're looking for here that will be quite different, again, from Virgin Galactic's launch 9 days ago.
Absolutely. So you really hit the nail on the head. Last week, Virgin Galactic's vehicle is a space plane. So seeing it launch looked like watching a really cool plane take off.
Right.
Today, spectators are going to see that blast. They're going to see a rocket ignite with people on top of it, which, you know, since NASA's shuttle program ended in 2011, we've only really seen from SpaceX so far. So this is still a rare and unique opportunity to see people rock into space. So I'm excited to see that part. I'm also really intrigued to see how they launch. And I know Blue Origin also plans to land its rocket like we've seen SpaceX land its Falcon 9 boosters, you know, kind of having it land kind of almost magically back on Earth. So I'm really interested to see the landing. And every rocket launch is always just an absolute thrill.
It does seem like magic to us, too. All right, we're just under 23 minutes as you see the countdown in the upper right part of the screen there. I'm curious, Chelsea, just what is next? I mean, we're going to have these landmarks here. We're going to have one billionaire send his Virgin Galactic up, and today we're going to have another billionaire send his Blue Origin up, and we're going to hit these sort of historical markers. But then realistically, what happens next when we talk about space tourism and how often these are going to happen and who's going to be eligible? What is really, as we get these moments out of the way this month, the future of space tourism?
That's a great question. So obviously, these being the first of their kind for these companies, they're a huge deal. And the founders are launching, you know, billionaires are launching, etc. But at least what is the hope of the space tourism industry is that over time, slowly, most likely, this will become more accessible. You know, I'm not sure if this will ever be as accessible as, you know, a plane ride, as flying a few hours away. But the hope is that as more and more of these launches happen, it will become more accessible. And the hope in that is that more varieties of people will be flying to space. It won't just be the billionaires. It won't just be the founders of the companies who built the rockets. It will be people passionate about spaceflight, people who want to observe Earth from space and bring that powerful message of the importance of that view and that experience back to Earth. So that is the hope of the space tourism industry. I am interested to see if that is truly how it plays out, or if things will go in a different direction. But yes, that is the hope.
And right now we're seeing just about 20 minutes out from launch, looks like some people who work for Blue Origin, obviously these employees kind of checking in with the 4 crew members that are in there, and they're actually, looks like they're about to seal the capsule. Looks like they're closing the door, which would likely mean that it's only those 4 crew members who are now inside, which again is Jeff.
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff Bezos, his brother Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, the oldest person to head to space, and Oliver Damon, the youngest person to head to space. They're now just in there, the 4 of them. I think we've been seeing that crew member 7 I mentioned before, who's that's kind of the name for the person who's on comms with them that they can hear. We saw somebody speaking on that headset. We know that they'll be able to communicate with the ground, which is where this is all happening from. Nothing is actually being, no functioning of this is actually happening from any of those crew members and in that capsule. But Chelsea, you mentioned and you talk about kind of the expansion of space tourism and this becoming cheaper for people. But in addition to the tourism aspect, we also know that kind of the mission, this vision that Jeff Bezos has for Blue Origin is this idea of people actually living and working in space to benefit Earth, especially as we look at climate change and just everything that's happening down here, of course, on our planet, and the need to potentially expand and explore to space. And he even sees moving industries to space. As somebody who covers this, who of course is deep in what is going on in space as a senior writer for Space.com, what do you see in terms of that? I mean, how realistic is that companies like this, these private companies, could really take us to that place where we could see, as his vision is, industries in space?
Absolutely. I do think that there is no planet B. I don't think Mars or the moon or even an orbit around Earth is truly an alternative option for humanity given the rising climate crisis. However, that being said, in launching more frequently to space, whether that's suborbital, into orbit, to the moon, to Mars, the research and the science that can even go on just suborbital missions like this is extremely important for our growing understanding of Earth. So while, in my opinion, I'm not sure that humanity will ever move to another planet, and whether or not that is a realistic and logical goal for our species, I do think that this exploration and continuing to advance spaceflight and exploration, I do think that that is extremely important for us to survive, because it is such an incredible and unique opportunity for scientists. And, you know, these are just suborbital, but, you know, hopefully we are not too many years away from returning humans to the moon and then from the moon to Mars. And the science we will have along the way, I think that that is really what's going to be the key.
Chelsea, last question I'll ask you. What do you think of Wally? I mean, what an amazing opportunity. Decades after this really should have happened for her.
Give an example other than those presented in this section of a qualitative variable is creative quantitative variable, continuous quantitative variable. Give an example other than those presented in this section of
and it has been decades. She's flown every different type of vehicle other than a spaceship. She has done just an unbelievable job as an aviator, as an educator, and I truly could not be more excited for her. I think the only person more excited is Wally herself, who I heard earlier was skipping into the training center.
Color skin is an example of qualitative variable
doing those 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness. Chelsea Good, senior writer for Space.com. Thank you for being with us on an exciting morning. Good to talk to you. Let's now bring in Paul Sutter. He's an astrophysicist and professor at the Institute for Advanced Computational Science at Stony Brook University.
Quantitative variable whose possible values can be received. Quantitative variable whose possible values from some integral of the numbers.
About this this. All right, so Bezos and his crew, now they are in this capsule. We just watched the door get shut, so it's just the 4 of them. They're expected to reach an altitude of 62 miles. That's the internationally recognized border of the Earth's atmosphere and space compared to 50 miles, which is the NASA boundary, which is what we saw Virgin Galactic reach. Is that a significant difference when you think about those 12 miles out there in space? What does that mean? What's the difference there?
Yeah, I mean, this has been the question over this entire week as these billionaires race to put up their rockets. And like, what is the edge of space? It's not like our atmosphere just stops and all of a sudden there's vacuum. It's a gentle, gradual transition. And so some calculations you say, okay, by like 100 kilometers, that's fine. Other calculations, 80 kilometers, that's fine. Either way, it's basically space.
Let's give people the Space 101, because I think we're all learning a lot of things we didn't know in just the last couple of weeks because of these high-profile launches. But everyone keeps saying this is suborbital, not orbital. Remind us, what's the difference between those two?
Right. So getting to space actually isn't that hard. Like, listen to that number, 100 kilometers. If your car could drive straight up, you'd be there in an hour. Space is not far away. So getting to space isn't too hard. Staying in space is a lot harder. So the New Shepard rocket is suborbital, which means it goes up, takes a little bit, and then comes back down. An orbital rocket requires a much faster velocity to go up and then keep going around the Earth without actually falling.
Of numbers.
So basically, this is just the easy part.
Sure,
is what you're saying.
The values of a qualitative variable qualitative data. The values of
Yeah, Paul, we're seeing this countdown now. It's only about
discrete
15 minutes out. Actually,
quantitative
it looks like
data,
the timer
discrete
stopped.
quantitative data,
Approximately 15
continuous
minutes from now is when
quantitative
they'll be
data,
heading
qualitative
out. We've
data.
seen that weather conditions have been
Qualitative
good this morning,
variables are
which was
called
pretty much the only
qualitative
thing that they were
data.
saying they were keeping
The
an eye
values
on
of
because
continuous
from a technical
qualitative
perspective, they said they
data
were ready to go. So it seems like this should
are
be
called
all
continuous
systems go in the next
quantitative
15
data.
minutes or so. Walk us through what these 4 are about to feel and experience as this rocket blasts off literally in the next 15 minutes.
Yes, after 15 minutes, and if they can calm down their heart rates, because I guarantee if I run that rocket, I would be exploding right now.
I think I'd be wondering, did I really think this was a good idea?
It's like, this is a good idea. Yeah. They're going to feel a lot
This
of
limitation
vibration.
is one reason why you must be able to classify data for most applications. The classifications are sufficient. For example, some classify almost money as discrete data, others continuous data in cases. However, the classification is very clear and will help us to choose the correct steps for analyzing it. Qualitative variable is non-numerical data.
And then so they're going to be weightless, they're going to float above the Earth, they're going to see all the awesome stuff, they're going to strap back in, and then they're going to plummet through the atmosphere and hopefully land gracefully.
Qualitative variable is non-numerical data. Qualitative variable is non-numerical data. Qualitative variable is non-numerical data.
What are your thoughts about the
Qualitative variable is
involved in
non-numerical
space travel,
data.
from SpaceX to what we're seeing here with the space tourism? I mean, did space need this? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, it's been such a fascinating transition to watch play out over the past 10 to 20 years. This transition from giant government, publicly funded agencies doing all the work in crewed exploration of space to all these private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origins and Virgin Galactic of sending human beings into space. Does space need this? Of course it does. Like if a bunch of super rich people wanna take a little tourist trip and see the Earth, that's cool. It's their money. What I'm really excited about is that all this money that is flowing into space exploration and space launches is opening up very interesting avenues for industry, for research, for understanding, and really truly exploring. And so if this is the launch pad, pun intended, to even cooler things, I'm all for it.
Okay, also, we're not exactly sure what's going on with the time right now, but it should be soon. But can I just say that I have a stomachache? Like the fact that the door closed as long ago as it did, and now they're just waiting, and then literally it's going to lift off, but this is happening any minute. So let's talk a little bit more. I love what you were just saying there for a minute as far as, yes, space needs this. I mean, what to you kind of, obviously in this sense, the sky is not the limit, but kind of what is possible? We talk about how Blue Origin's mission here is be bringing industry into space and stuff. I mean, what does that look like? What is people going back and forth to work there, to have any type of industry there? What does that mean? How does that work?
The really cool part about making access to space cheaper, which is the true goal of SpaceX and Blue Origin's Virgin Galactic, is to
reveal the following data on the highest recorded temperature for each continent.
The way we put people and things into space was to build one of the most complicated engines humanity has ever devised, fill it up with rocket fuel, launch it, send a tiny little payload into space, and then just ditch it in the ocean. So imagine lighting your car on fire every time you have to go to the grocery store. This is not necessarily economical, but with usable rockets, we are dramatically lowering the cost of access to space. And when you make something cheaper, you have no idea what you're going to get, because all of a sudden you have all these creative people
what type of data is provided by
now that it's cheaper to get into space, I wonder if I could do this that I couldn't even dream of before because it was just too ridiculously expensive. So one of the first examples that we're seeing is the deployment of these mega constellations of communication satellites offering broadband internet access to the entire world. That's something that was incomprehensible even 10 years ago, and now is literally happening before our very eyes.
Paul, quickly here while we have you, you know, the goal is that we'll maybe see a couple more of these later this year, and maybe see more than half a dozen of these next year, and eventually get to the point where they're happening every 2 weeks. This is like a regular thing to see a rocket like this take off and send regular folks up into space. You want to do one?
I mean, if you're paying, sure.
Yeah, right? We really do need to see that price tag come down for the regular folks. That's very exciting. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on what is a big morning. We will let you go so that you can enjoy this liftoff as we will be here. Thank you so much for your time. Again, Paul Sutter, Research Professor, Institute for Advanced Computational Science. Good to have you with us this morning. We are just moments away.
Yeah, we can see the clock is frozen at 15 minutes. We've assumed that's intentional, which means maybe they're not going to take off right at the moment we thought, but we are going to be joining an NBC News special report in just a few seconds, so we want to make sure you're prepared for that. But I'm following Blue Origin on Twitter just to see if they're giving us any updates. All I know is 11 minutes ago they said the hatch is closed and final checks are underway. Those 4 passengers on board, including a man who, as we just heard, will, for a few minutes, not be the richest man.
Yes, exactly. That, of course, Jeff Bezos aboard his own rocket, the Blue Origin's New Shepard, along with his brother, Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, and Oliver Damon, headed to space on this first human flight for Blue Origin. And we will now be joining an NBC News special report as we watch the New Shepard launch.
Here's Craig Melvin.
And a good day to you. We are coming on the air right now because in just a few moments, billionaire Jeff Bezos and a crew of 3 others, including his younger brother, will launch into space. Bezos' own Blue Origin rocket set to take off soon from that site in West Texas. The total flight will be around 11 minutes long, giving the crew about 4 minutes of weightlessness up there. The flight is part of what some are calling the new billionaire space race, coming just days after, 9 days after Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic launch. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Tom Costello, who is in West Texas this morning. Tom, first of all, are we on schedule? And when this rocket and capsule, when they do take off, what can we expect?
I'll tell you, we are in right now a hold, and we don't have an explanation yet, Craig, as to why we're in a hold for liftoff. However, Blue Origin is insisting that, in fact, they are going. Just a few minutes ago, we had all 4 crew members load into the space capsule. All 4 crew members being Jeff Bezos, the billionaire founder of Amazon, and Blue Origin, his space company. And then his brother Mark is on board as well. We also have 82-year-old Wally Funk, who was one of the original Mercury 13 astronauts who was supposed to fly in space, but because of her gender, never did. 82 years old, a veteran pilot. She says she has every possible aviation license, and she's excited to finally go to space. And then we have 18-year-old Oliver Damon. He is from the Netherlands. His father is a rather wealthy Dutch investment banker and has essentially paid for Oliver's trip and ticket here to go up
Some
to
of the information for 4 of
high.
the 105 requests that occurred on May 10, 2013 is shown in the following table. Magnitude is given on the Richter scale, and energy distance for the number of stations, the reported activity on the same orbit.
Not on the space station, but rather the new age in space tourism, which this is really all about. This is not really about a one-shot with Jeff Bezos any more than the Branson trip was about a one-shot with Richard Branson 9 days ago. This is about opening the door to space tourism, and what both men believe is a very, very big market for exactly that.
Discrete quantitative data,
It restarted. It appears as if a hold
qualitative
has been
data.
lifted. Tom, you mentioned Sir Richard Branson's flight 9 days ago. Talk to us a little bit about the differences between what we are going to see when this Blue Origin plane takes off versus what we saw just a few days ago.
Yeah, 2 very big differences to begin with. As you know, the Richard Branson Virgin Galactic space plane was dropped from a mothership, and then they lit the rocket, and the rocket took them at Mach 3 right up to 53 miles above the Earth. And so that qualifies, that goes beyond what NASA and the FAA define as the edge of space. Different from this experience here, where we have Jeff Bezos in the Blue Origin rocket, not a plane, it's a rocket like you and I are familiar with from the old Apollo days. They will light the rocket here. They will also accelerate to Mach 3, and then at a certain point, the rocket will drop away from the space capsule. The capsule will continue on its trajectory to 62 miles above the Earth, and they too, at that point, will cross the boundary between the atmosphere and space. As you know, there's kind of an international disagreement over where exactly is that line. Again, NASA and the FAA and the military say it's 50 miles up. That's what Branson did. The international organization that manages these treaties says, no, it's 62 miles up. Not that it matters, right? At that point, you're still going to experience weightlessness for 3 to 4 minutes, and that's exactly what these folks will do before then the capsule begins to descend back down to Earth. Much like in the Apollo days, it will descend down, and then it will have those parachutes come out from the top. But instead of landing in the water, they're going to land in West Texas, in the desert here, this massive desert behind me. And there is a lot of space out here. There's a lot of sand. I asked them yesterday, do you have a bullseye, a target you have to hit on landing? And they said, no, not at all. We got plenty of space out there. We can land wherever we want, right off of the, really right behind me. And so they've got the Range Rovers or the trucks ready to roll out there to immediately get those guys. You know, one question I asked yesterday, I was talking to the senior design engineer, and I said, what about re-entry heat? Because as you know, when the space shuttle re-entered the atmosphere, it would heat up so much, of course, that those protective tiles underneath were meant to protect the crew. And as you know, there was a failure at one point, and we lost a space shuttle because of that. The difference here, though, is that they're coming back down at, I'm told, about Mach 1.6. Contrast that to the space shuttle at Mach 25. And so there's not nearly the level of heating. They didn't go nearly as far out of the atmosphere and into space as we saw with the shuttle. So you're not going to have nearly as much heating, and so they use a foam underneath the space capsule. They don't need the tiles, they say. They'll parachute back down to Earth, and then they will very quickly be picked up by the crews on the ground.
So we are now just 10.5 minutes away from that 60-foot
Discrete quantitative data.
heading into space. Mr. Costello, don't go far. I do want to bring in Kathy Leaders now. Kathy leads NASA's human space flight program. Kathy, thanks for your time this morning. Kathy, did you think
That type of data is provided by the information that 페이스북에서 social network 비즈니스 있어 qualitative data.
Absolutely. This is what we've been working for. I've been working different commercial activities for the last 15 years, and I'm going to tell you, we are rooting for this crew, just like we were rooting for the crew last week, because this is what we wanted to be working towards one day, and this is just amazing.
Also joining me this morning, former NASA astronaut Ron Garan, and Ron, the rocket has been named New Shepard, of course, a tribute to the first American into space, Alan Shepard. As you're sitting and watching right now, Ron, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking?
Well, this is exciting. I think this is the dawn of a new era of space travel, where hopefully space travel becomes as commonplace as air travel. And I think these are the baby steps leading to this. And I think it's really fitting that it's a nod back to that first suborbital flight of the U.S. space program with Alan Shepard on board.
You were aboard Space Shuttle Discovery, if I recall correctly. When they do go into space, we hear so much talk about the G's. And
from the website 8000ers.com, you obtain the table of the highest mountain peaks in the world as March 2015. The names of the top 10 peaks, along with their altitudes, are listed in the following table. Mount Everest, K2, Godwin, Austin.
An elephant is sitting on their chest, and they're going to watch the sky
Discrete
turn from blue to black.
quantitative
They're going
data.
to see the curvature of the Earth, the thinness of the atmosphere. They're going to see our sun in a black sky. None of them have ever seen that before. They're going to see our sun as a star, as it truly is. And they're going to go from feeling like that elephant is sitting on their chest to being weightless instantly when the engine kicks off, and then they're going to be experiencing the freedom of zero G. It's going to be spectacular. It's quite a view.
A live look here at mission control, so to speak, as we approach the 8-minute mark. 8 minutes until we watch this rocket head into space. Mr. Costello, I understand you are still with me. I want to ask you about those windows specifically, because yesterday you actually got a look inside the training capsule, and you were describing these windows as something like which you've never seen before.
You know, it's almost like having an IMAX screen right next to you, because they're huge. They have 6 big windows inside the space capsule. So you, if you're strapped into the seat, and I was yesterday, you're kind of strapped down. You're in it's like being in a dentist chair, more comfortable though. Nobody's drilling on you. And you look out to your right, and you've got a massive window, and you will see the Earth drop away, and then you'll see, as you start to head into space, the curvature of the Earth and the blackness and the rich blue of Earth. So all of that out your window, and everybody gets their own window, 6 windows inside the capsule. And this was part of the design. They wanted this to be very much about the experience for the individual who's going to pay to go. You know, we should also make the point, today is the 52nd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. And that was a very important moment for Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson. They both said after that day it changed them. They both wanted to go to space. And instead of joining NASA, they essentially started their own space companies, built their own spaceships, and they believe that there is great interest with the general public to do exactly that, to go to space. And they are both reusing their technology, right? So Branson comes back to space, back from space rather, in the space plane, lands it, reuses it. And the same thing here, Blue Origin going to reuse the rocket, reuse the space capsule again and again and again. And they insist that there are so many multiple redundancies in terms of safety. It is very, very safe for the paying passenger going forward who is not a veteran astronaut like your 2 other guests.
And Tom, as we approach the 6-minute mark, a live look here at a viewing party. This is the family and a lot of friends of 82-year-old Wally Funk. And as we watch the civilian crew aboard that aircraft a short time ago, it was Wally Funk leading
What
them up
university?
those stairs. Mae Jemison has been on a
Cambridge,
aircraft or two in her day.
Imperial College London, California, Berkeley, Chicago,
We'll get to me in just a
Oxford,
moment. Let's talk about the
Harvard.
business angle of this for just a moment. Andrew Ross Sorkin is with me as well. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin. So to Tom's point, Andrew, the thinking here is that roughly a decade
Research,
from now,
knowledge transfer, international outlook. The rankings employ 13 carefully calibrated performance indicators to provide
now as well. That's the big bet, no?
the top 10 universities for
but in many ways, it's even a bigger bet than that. Jeff Bezos has spent about $6 billion of his own money on Blue Origin. But you have this space race going on between Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos. They all come at this with a different approach. Elon Musk says he wants to get people to Mars effectively over the long term so we can escape Earth. Jeff Bezos has a very different idea. He believes that Earth is the best place for humans, and he wants to build infrastructure effectively to get manufacturing and everything that happens on Earth that he doesn't think needs to happen here out into space. And so there's the space tourism business. That's the next 10 years. We'll see what that business looks like. But for Jeff Bezos, there's an even bigger idea here, which is to really fundamentally change how we on Earth interact with space over the long term.
Jeff Bezos, the world's wealthiest man, worth somewhere north of $200 billion at last check. Sir Richard Branson, also a billionaire, albeit fewer billions than Jeff Bezos. Tom Costello, a lot has been made over the past few weeks of this rivalry, perhaps, between the two billionaire astronauts. Well, one billionaire astronaut, one soon-to-be billionaire astronaut, it would seem. What do we make of that rivalry? Is that something that we, the media, have sort of created, or is it legitimate on some level?
Yes and yes. I think that we in the media have probably made a big deal out of the fact that we have two billionaires who built their own spaceships, and they're going to carry passengers, and oh well, who gets to go first? And let's be clear, Bezos said he was going to go today, July 20th. When that announcement came out, Branson immediately said, we're going on a week before or 9 days before. That may have caused a little bit of hard feelings here in the Bezos camp. Keep in mind they put out kind of I don't know, a tweet that wasn't in great taste, in which they essentially questioned whether Branson and his passengers would really be astronauts because they're not going as high as Bezos would go. I must say, I think that a lot of the spectators and informed people who watch this industry in and out every single day really question whether somebody who peeks their head into space for 3 minutes is an astronaut. Not in any way qualified.
Continuous
Or somebody who spends years training for a mission with NASA or to spend 6 months on the space station. But nonetheless, it is about the experience, the human experience of being able to see Earth in its totality, right? And hopefully see the Earth without boundaries and borders and challenges. And in the words of, the former NASA administrator, you come back with a much deeper appreciation for doing all we can to save this planet.
We are under 2 minutes now, 2 minutes away from New Shepard, ascending into space, traveling some 62 miles. The entire flight from touchdown to landing expected to take roughly 11 minutes. And Tom, it would seem as if our vantage point has changed a bit. We're getting a closer look now at the capsule itself. What's happening in mission control right now, Tom?
This is literally going through all of those engineering checks that you would experience if you were listening to a SpaceX launch or a NASA launch. Obviously not nearly as complicated as a NASA launch, but still the same attention to detail, making sure every system is go, that all the fuel lines are positive. They're going to be burning a combination of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, 110,000 pounds of thrust as they lift off here from the desert floor in West Texas. And it is about making sure it all looks good. But as you mentioned, 15 unmanned test flights so far have all been flawless, and they have an emergency abort system. Should something go wrong on ascent, they will literally catapult or fire the crew out and away from the rocket, and then they will parachute back down to Earth. And then on descent, they have 3 parachutes rather than 1 to ensure it's a safe landing. They believe that this is going to be the way you and I and everybody else in the future will experience looking at the Earth from 62 miles high. So important now as we listen into Mission Control and the final countdown.
Listed in the following table also included are the teams for which they played, their position, their weight.
Jeff Bezos, his younger brother Mark.
Qualitative, quantitative, discrete quantitative data, continuous quantitative data.
Oh my goodness, listen to the roar of the BE-3 engine. We are just about to pass through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. That is when the stresses on the vehicle are at their maximum.
Max Q.
Max Q is confirmed. Beautiful burn on that BE-3 engine. Liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen as the propellants. It's a nice, not just clean in terms of beautifully performing, but what comes out of it, it's steam, right? Whew. To see the glow of the engine underneath the rocket, just under our shoulders, and to
a publication of the Nielsen Company, the top 3 prime broadcast network relationships for the week are as presented in the following table. Ratings are the percentage of TV hosts tuned in.
Suborbital flight with an all-civilian crew.
In the middle.
2 minutes in the air now.
Qualitative.
Tom, at what point do we see that capsule start to separate from the rocket?
Discrete quantitative data.
I think that'll occur, I think, at about the 6-minute mark.
Qualitative,
I don't have the exact timeline. I think we should just make the point to the viewer who's watching, and the female voice you hear is the voice of Blue Origin's Mission Control. This is not NASA. This is not a government entity that is providing us that kind of data straight from NASA. This is, of course, a private company providing us their narration, and so we're very mindful of that. But you're going to get spectacular views here, and you're going to get the engineering expertise, of course, as well, from Blue Origin's own Mission Control.
Right. Unreal. Awaiting separation here.
International Educational Exchange Program. The Fulbright program is sponsored by the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. Fulbrights are awarded based on academic and leadership potential, providing the opportunity to exchange ideas and contribute to finding solutions to shared international concerns. For 2013, the top 10 doctoral research institutions receiving Fulbright awards are as shown in the following table. The success rate gives the number of grants per application, expressed as a percentage, identify the type of data provided by the international information in each column.
That you and other astronauts have enjoyed. Can you describe it at all for us?
Yeah, I think what I experienced in space the first time I looked out the window was an indescribable feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for the opportunity to see the planet from that vantage point, and gratitude for the planet that we've been given. And I think in a way that I won't be able to fully explain, being physically detached from the Earth made me feel deeply interconnected and deeply interdependent with everyone on it. I think I saw the true unity of our planet, the true unity of our species, and all those things we fight over and quarrel over, all those things we think are so important, kind of blurred into insignificance in the face of that indescribable beauty.
Any moment now, we're told that that capsule is going to separate from the rocket booster. And Mr. Costello, at what point will these civilian astronauts begin to experience that weightlessness?
Yeah, they'll get it pretty darn quickly. And I'm trying to listen into Mission Control as well, because she's our best source on exactly what's happening up there. As we mentioned earlier, we have been waiting for more details from Blue Origin. Some of that they hold close to the vest. So the best description of what's happening.
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning.
Yeah, I think that's...
Let's try to listen into Blue Origin.
I think we're hearing them right now.
Let's try to listen in.
You get that one?
Got it. Let's see if I can see the boost. Oh, yeah. Little bit. I cannot. Oh, wow. I think we want to do that. Okay, get in. We gotta get in.
Oh, fantastic. Look at this. It's dark up here.
Oh, wow.
Craig, so we were hearing them floating inside the capsule and taking the photographs of each other.
Everybody in?
First step, check.
We don't have the video of that just yet, Tom, but what we can do is describe on the right side of your screen, you are seeing that capsule. It has, as you can see, they're detached from the rocket booster. That's precisely what's supposed to happen.
Qualitative, discrete quantitative data, discrete quantitative data, continuous qualitative data, continuous qualitative data, quantitative data.
When I mentioned the 6-minute mark, I meant to say that's about the point that they get back into their seats. I think that's where we are now.
Captain Green Cars. The following table presents information on Calibra books, the best green cars of 2013. Note that MPG and MPG are abbreviations for miles per gallon and miles per gallon equivalent. Respectively identify the type of data provided by the information in each column of the table.
Come back down, land on a pad here, back down in West Texas, separately followed by
discrete quantitative data, qualitative data, qualitative data, continuous quantitative data, quantitative.
As the rocket comes back down to Earth.
Descriptive statistics.
And the booster has landed. The booster's on the ground, Tom.
Booster touchdown. Welcome back, New Shepard. A beautiful rocket that provided a beautiful flight to space.
Bullseye, right on the landing.
Goodness, stuck the landing. And Tom, that capsule should follow here in roughly 3 minutes, correct?
That's exactly right. So, and they will pull those chutes. And as that capsule is coming back down, it'll hit 3.7. Mach 3.7 initially as it comes back down, and then the chutes will come out and they will eventually slow to 16 miles per hour. And as it comes within about 20 feet of Earth, they will fire some retro rockets that will slow it even further as it has a very soft landing in the West Texas sand. And there is a lot of sand. There are the chutes.
All 3 parachutes. Tom, do stand by for me once again. We are joined now by Space royalty.
So far, a nominal
Mae Jemison is with me, former NASA astronaut, the first woman of color in space in 1992.
Another important type of data is ordinary data, which are data about order of rank given as scarce such as 1 to 3 or ABC.
We're inside that capsule that are about to touch down here on the third rock from the sun. What are they thinking right now? What are they feeling
GH.
Well, I can't tell you exactly, but if it was me, I would have this big smile on my face and probably wanting to do it all over again. I think what they've done is to see something that is incredible, and also to have an experience that, we don't often have in life. I was thinking about the excitement with this. It was because the rocket, you get to see all of the things that go on a flight for a short period of time, and the adrenaline that goes with it. I think they're just excited and wanting to tell the story when they get back.
And what a story they will have, a lifetime of stories. Mae Jemison do stand by as we watch Jeff Bezos, his younger brother Mark, Wally Funk, the oldest woman to ever go into space, and Oliver Damon, all of them about to touch down in the West Texas desert.
And touchdown. Welcome back, New Shepard's first human crew. What a flight.
To Earth first step. Congratulations to all of you.
What a day, what a day.
Mission complete, mission accomplished, and now we watch and wait.
It looks amazing. Copy first up, you have a very happy Capcom here as well. Let's do a status check. Astronaut Oliver. Copy, astronaut demo.
Astronaut demo, I am unbelievably good.
Copy.
Blue Control Bezos, best day ever.
Copy, everyone. Go ahead and remain in your seats. Crew member 7 is on their way. Shortly, you will hear the capsule off-gassing.
Anybody have to start out the store? My main mission was accomplished. I didn't kick anyone.
We were listening to Blue Origin Mission Control. You can see Mission Control there. Mr. Costello, it would seem as if it went off without a hitch.
210 feet.
Yeah, and I think we heard their excitement in their voices. I think I just heard Wally Funk say she'd been floating for 5 minutes, which has just exceeded her expectations. Obviously, a great experience. And I got to think also about this 18-year-old Dutch kid, Oliver, who 2 weeks ago was between high school and college, and suddenly he's on a rocket going to the edge of space. So what a game changer this has been for him. What they're going to do now is make sure that all safety protocols are followed. They offload any gases, you heard them say, and then they're going to come in very quickly.
Some situations generate an overwhelming amount of data. We can often make a large or complicated set of data are more compact and easier to understand by organizing within a table, chart, or graph. In this section, we examine some of the most important ways to organize qualitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data.
Taking off And Tom, the whole thing is actually a few seconds
Some
less.
situations generate an overwhelming amount of data. It can often make a large or uncomplicated set of data more compact and easier to understand by organizing it in a table, chart, or graph. In this section, we examine some of the most important ways to organize qualitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. For quantity distributions.
The beauty of the system is it is a reusable rocket. They're going to turn that rocket booster around, and the space capsule also will be reused.
Very close to the capsule.
And we're watching those SUVs pull up to the capsule here.
What do you think?
And presumably in just a few moments we are going to see for the very happy and very excited folks.
To it so quickly, they start moving even before it landed. Based on the prediction of landing, we use weather balloons that we launched throughout the morning, and that gives us a very good idea of where it will land, which is within 1,000 feet. What you're seeing that they're doing right now is Kevin Sproul, crew member 7, is just making sure everybody's okay and gives them a thumbs up. They're also grounding the vehicle. When you go into space, you could accumulate pretty significant electric charge. That's actually why we prefer that the astronauts not get out themselves, so that we can ground the vehicle at static charge, which can be quite strong.
Excellent, and I think there that Kevin Sproul, our crew member 7, has given the thumbs up for all of our astronauts that are on board there. Again, Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, and Oliver Damon. What an incredible day! You heard them on the audio. Best day ever. I mean, this is. I feel like this is our best day ever, and we didn't even get to go.
Frequency distributions.
I mean, what a day!
Recorded qualitative data are values of qualitative variable. When an organized qualitative data is to construct a table that gives the number of times which a distinct value occurs. The number of times a particular distinct value occurs is called its frequency.
Felix is up here.
We can often make a larger or complicated set of data more compact and easier to understand by organizing it in a table, chart, or graph. In this section, we examine some of the most important ways to organize qualitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. In this section, we examine some of the most important ways to organize qualitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. In the next section, we do that for quantitative data. Frequency distributions. We call the qualitative data are values of qualitative variable. Qualitative data are values of is to construct a table that gives the number of times each distinct values occur. The number of times a particular distinct value occurs is called its frequency or count.
So much support since they were little kids and dreamt of this
frequency.
A
frequency distribution of qualitative data is a listing of distinct values and their frequencies. Frequency distribution. Frequency distribution.
successful launch and landing of the New Shepard rocket and crew capsule with our first human flight crew there, Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Oliver Damon, and Wally Funk.
And they're back on the ground.
And their families.
Hugs and high fives
all around.
There in West Texas. Former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino is with me as well. Mike is also a senior advisor for space programs at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum here in New York. And Mike, you watched it all unfold as well with me here. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Really thrilled to be here with you, and amazing what we just saw. I think that this is a great accomplishment. We're for the team at Blue Origin able to pull this off. They had 15 successful flights before this, 3 successful flights of tests of their escape system, and now they got people on board, and Jeff Bezos takes the first ride. So I think it's pretty exciting. I think it opens up opportunities not only for people. I'm also a professor at Columbia. Some of my students have had an experiment fly already on the New Shepard spacecraft. So I think it's going to open up opportunities and more access to space, and very exciting what Blue Origin has planned for the future as well.
Mr. Costello, we know that there is going to be a news conference of some sort here roughly an hour and a half from now, so reporters will get to ask some questions of the civilian astronauts. What do we know about what happens after this?
They will have, well, first of all, they're going to have some family time reunited with friends and family. First of all, they're going to have some family time reunited with friends and family right here on the ground. Do that privately, and then they have a series, after the news conference, they have a series of one-on-one interviews with the media.
They're
just
good.
a couple
They are
of
good.
points here. First of all, this isn't really as much about a billionaire going to space in the terms of Jeff Bezos any more than it was really about Richard Branson. It's about this new chapter in allowing anybody eventually to experience seeing the Earth from beyond that, that Kármán line between the atmosphere and space, and providing people really what they hope is kind of a rounding experience, a human experience, and gaining a greater appreciation for where we are, for this planet that we are on, and it's only us, right? We're out here in the middle of nowhere in the universe. I would also make the point, it is a very comfortable 75 degrees on the ground here in West Texas, and it normally can get up to 110. The locals here are talking about the fact they cannot believe we're having such wonderful weather here. Yesterday was only in the 80s. So fantastic weather and a beautiful day to land here in West Texas. Also, by the way, we had a security and a safety briefing here on the ground before this whole thing started. And the director of security for Blue Origin, a very serious guy, said, look out for the rattlesnakes, the scorpions, the tarantulas, and the tornadoes. So beyond that, have a great time. So, you can imagine that I think all the rattlesnakes were scared away when that thing landed in the sand.
A few moments ago, it also appeared as if someone remembered to bring the champagne to the party there in the desert of West Texas. May Jemison is back with me as well. May, here we are in 2021. We've just seen
From table 2.2, we see that the 40 students in the class, 13 are Democrats, 18 are Republicans, and 9 are other.
Wow, that's a big guess for me, Craig. I think that where we're going to be is where I hope we'll be, is that the excitement about space exploration continues, and we will steadfastly continue to support the incredible work that governments do in space exploration, because this is very clearly and rightfully built on work that was from
By simply glassing a table
in terms of getting humans in space, and so we're able to have a confidence in Blue Origin and what they do, because a lot of the big heavy lifting was already done. The commercial industry brings a wealth of engineering and innovation to move things forward. So I hope what we're doing is we'll see this continued process where it's not, we haven't sort of said it's only commercial, it's only private industry, but we continue to support the work that NASA does, whether it's long-range space exploration or going back to the moon, and also putting in the work with commercial industry. So in 10 years, perhaps we'll see the ticket prices come down, we'll see more people involved, we'll see more payloads involved, and we will be back on the moon one way or the other.
That feels like the perfect period to our coverage this morning. The Blue Origin soared into space. It was there for roughly 10.5 minutes.
Relative frequency distribution of qualitative data. A relative frequency distribution of qualitative data is a listing of the distinct values and their relative frequencies.
Right now, we will be hearing from them in just a bit. But for now, that concludes our coverage of the Blue Origin space launch. I'm Craig Melvin here in New York. Thank you for watching.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day. Our world is facing some big challenges. Chuck Todd breaks them down. A deep dive into a new topic.
Instead of covering all the big stories, we're going to cover one single subject impacting American politics.
Exploring and explaining the critical issues that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 2 are now available on demand on Peacock. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Good evening tonight from Geneva, just hours away from his historic summit. President Biden wants to find common ground. Does Putin need common ground? Over 16,000 unaccompanied children tonight. What's victory look like?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Bolt.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. Our week-long journey begins here in Orlando, Kentucky, Cleveland. Our cross-America journey, reporting on an America rebuilding and reimagining a future after the pandemic. Good evening tonight from Geneva, just hours away from his historic summit. Over 16,000 unaccompanied children tonight in custody. What's victory look like, Lester? What does improvement look like? It's going to be a challenge to meet that 70% goal. Why is it so challenging?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Bolt.
Right now on NBC News Now,
they are escaping a number of conditions there, violence and persecution in their home countries.
They are speaking out against laws that they feel would make it harder for Texas voters to cast their ballot.
There's excitement that we are now turning the corner. We heard the mask mandate and mask guidance coming from the CDC earlier today.
We have a team of correspondents covering this breaking story for us today.
Boss Baby is coming to theaters. Let's roll. And streaming on Peacock the same day.
Is this some kind of a ninja boy band?
Huh. The Boss Baby Family Business. Featuring in theaters Friday and streaming the same day on Peacock. Go to bossbabymovie.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Reiser in for Allison Morris. You're watching NBC News Now. Here's what's happening. New concerns over the mysterious illness known as Havana syndrome. As many as 200 Americans now reporting possible symptoms. The FBI, DOJ, and CIA all on the case.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals? I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci getting into a sparring match at today's Senate hearing on COVID. We'll tell you what led up to the war of words.
I want to
to thank every Amazon employee and
We
every
obtained a
Amazon
free
customer
constant distribution at the
participated for all
data
this.
of 12.5. Specifically, see the first and third columns of table 2.2
the first
page.
unpiloted all-civilian suborbital flight. So what is next for the future of space travel? We start today with
The
the
two columns of table 2.3 provide a relative frequency distribution for the day.
For our viewers who aren't familiar with this, can you explain what Havana syndrome is and how long this has been going on?
Sure, Lindsay. Well, we don't even know the answer to that question, frustratingly, but we do know that the
Pie
symptoms
chart is a
of this
disk
syndrome
divided
started to crop
into
up in
wedge-shaped
2016
pieces
in the
proportional to
embassy in
the
Cuba. That's why
relative
it's called Havana
frequencies
syndrome.
of the
A number of
qualitative
diplomats and
data.
CIA
A pie
officers
chart
there
is a
came
disk
down with some
divided into
strange
wedge-shaped
neurological symptoms.
pieces
They heard
proportional to
sounds,
the
they got
relative
vertigo,
frequencies of the
and they
qualitative
found
data.
that these symptoms did not go away. They suffered from headaches. Some were permanently injured by this. And now it seems to be spreading, or at least people believe they're coming down with these symptoms at various postings around the world, throughout Europe and basically in every continent except Antarctica. And the U.S. government is at a loss to explain what this could be. There are only theories. There isn't hard evidence. Some people believe it's an attack or an effort to collect intelligence by the Russians using directed energy, microwave energy weapons. But again, there's no evidence. It's the biggest mystery I've ever covered on the intelligence beat, Lindsay. The one thing we do know, though, is that people have suffered real and serious injuries.
And some of the biggest increases are in Europe now. So you have new details about cases in Berlin and Vienna. Tell us about those.
Yeah, that's right. My colleague Josh Lederman dug out that for the first time we're reporting that a diplomat in Berlin was struck with these symptoms and had to go home early. And that's the thing about this situation is that this is very serious injuries to people, brain injuries, where they're having to get treatment at the Walter Reed Medical Center where injured veterans get treatment. They are suffering permanent damage to their tissue, but it's really
picture
difficult
is
for the
what
experts to figure out
doesn't work.
how and why it happened, Lindsay.
When can a baby in
Pie chart is a
Kurdistan
disk
experience
divided
these
into
symptoms? What are officials saying about that
wedge-shaped
case?
proportional relative
They're saying very little, actually, Lindsay. We just know that has been reported, and that's not the only minor child that we're aware of who has experienced symptoms. And the theory behind that is that if someone is pointing some kind of directed energy weapon or device at a target and their family is in the vicinity, that those people may have somehow been affected. But again, it's only a theory at this point. There just isn't any evidence that we know of. It's very frustrating. There is a National Academies of Sciences report, though, that says that the most likely culprit of this is directed energy. This is consistent with microwave energy. A bunch of scholars who study this have found. But even that's up for debate within the scientific community.
So, Ken, what is the State Department doing about this, and what about our allies in countries with these growing cases?
Well, so there is a massive effort now in the Biden administration by not only the State Department, but the CIA and the entire intelligence community to get to the bottom of what this is, to scrub all the signals, the cell phone calls, the location data around all these incidents to find out, for example, were there Russian intelligence officers in the vicinity. We know that they have determined that that's the case in some of these incidents, but that's not seen as conclusive because Russian intelligence officers often follow Americans around, for example, in Moscow or in European capitals. We're reporting that there are a number of incidents that have emerged in Vienna, which is a center of kind of espionage in Europe. One thing the Biden administration is saying is that anybody who had these symptoms should report them and get the proper medical care, because in the past there's been some resistance within some of these agencies who have thought that maybe this is psychosomatic, maybe it's not real. I've spoken to people who have suffered this. It is very real, Lindsay.
Wow, mysterious indeed. All right, Ken Delaney, thanks so much for your reporting. The clock is ticking. A bipartisan group of senators is rushing to finish drafting an infrastructure package before it's set to get its first vote tomorrow. But Republicans say that's not going to happen, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is also not budging.
Again, a yes vote tomorrow is simply that the Senate is ready to begin debating a bipartisan infrastructure bill. No more, no less. We've waited a month. It's time to move forward. Once we get on the bill, there's going to be plenty of time for the bipartisan group to continue its work.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake joins me now. So, Garrett, right now, Schumer does not have the 10 GOP votes to advance this bill. Will he hold the vote regardless?
It looks that way, Lindsay. In fact, that bipartisan group who's been working on this for more than a month now are meeting even as we speak to see if they can come up with some kind of solution so that they could have a bill ready to go for this vote. But it looks like even if they did finish it, you wouldn't have time to get this scored by the CBO, namely the Congressional Budget Office, saying how much the bill would actually cost and how much of it is paid for. So it looks like we're headed towards this vote tomorrow, which will likely fail. I don't think that spells the end of the road for this effort. And I think Schumer's team would tell you they are trying to light a fire under this bipartisan group to finish what they started so long ago and actually get a bill text in front of the Senate sooner rather than later.
Well, and Garrett, the other big news out of Capitol Hill, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy appears pretty confident that Speaker Pelosi is going to approve his 5 picks just announced for the January 6th Select Committee. Here he is.
Have you got any indication that Speaker Pelosi will approve the members you've chosen?
Why would she not? I wouldn't understand why she would not. It would just be more politics.
Speaker Pelosi is reviewing McCarthy's picks now. What are you hearing from her office?
Every indication is that Pelosi will approve these picks that Leader McCarthy has made here. You see them on the screen. Jim Banks, as the ranking member here, is a fairly mainstream pick. Jim Jordan is someone who really infuriates Democrats, but he's also a ranking member on a different committee. He's on another select committee, the one on the coronavirus already. You didn't see Pelosi block him for that there. The Speaker's office has said they won't use whether or not any of these members voted against certifying the election results to make this decision. That's the only basis by which I could have seen
Notice that we expressed our relative frequencies of percentages either method is acceptable.
Really
뭐라고
fascinating
한다고?
sentiment
파이처트라고
too, because
한다고?
Dr. Fauci
파이처트.
testified before the Senate today, and he got into some really heated exchanges with Republican Senator Rand Paul. I mean, it feels like each one has been building and building, and today it just came to a head. But, Rand Paul accused Dr. Fauci of lying to Congress about NIH funding research in Wuhan. How did Dr. Fauci respond?
Yeah, this has been an ongoing theme in these Health and Education, Labor, Pensions Committee hearings with Dr. Fauci and Rand Paul, who Paul has been someone who's really tried to challenge the orthodoxy on where the coronavirus originally came from. They got into this back and
Another
forth
graphical
today
display
about whether or not the
related
NIH
to
had
the
funded
virtual
research at that lab
frequencies,
in Wuhan,
relative
China, and
frequencies of
Fauci had
business can
finally
be
had
used
enough. He fired back at Rand Paul like this.
I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you were referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
Some good fireworks there, Lindsay, but not the most important part of the hearing. I think that's probably from the opening remarks that all of the public health officials present gave. They said the most important thing that can be done to end the pandemic now and save lives are for people who can go get vaccinated, don't have any health reasons not to, go get the vaccine now.
Garrett, legislation to move military sexual assault prosecution out of the chain of command moved one step closer today. Tell us about that and also what challenges lie ahead.
There's bipartisan support in the Senate for this legislation, which would essentially pull sexual assault and some other serious crimes within the military out of being investigated by the chain of command, which means this next officer up the chain essentially isn't responsible for overseeing that investigation. It would be given to outside groups. But this is opposed. So what happened today was a subcommittee vote to include language that would do this in the big funding bill that pays for all of the Pentagon's operations for the next year. So one small step there, but the leadership of this committee, namely Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, is still opposed to this measure and may try to strip it out. Every time this comes up, the measure gets a little bit more support in the Senate. There's probably more than 60 votes to get it across the threshold now, but there's never been a standalone vote on it. So you've got lawmakers trying to insert it into other provisions that must pass still a fight ahead on this issue, but Kirsten Gillibrand and Joni Ernst, who've been really pushing on this, continuing to make some progress.
A lot going on in your world today, Garrett Haake. Thanks so much.
You bet.
A breakthrough case of COVID-19 at the White House. An unnamed, fully vaccinated official has tested positive. Let's bring in NBC's White House correspondent Mike Memoli. So, Mike, Press Secretary Jen Psaki getting questioned about this case during her briefing today. How is this person doing, and is the White House planning to change any protocols?
Well, what the White House is saying is that this individual did face an initial positive test. They remained off campus, as they say, and will be waiting for a confirmatory PCR test to ensure that they do, in fact, have COVID. They've also done some contact tracing and determined that this individual had not been in direct contact with the president or with other senior White House officials. They were positive. But I have to tell you, Lindsay, I was in that briefing today. I've been watching these briefings on a daily basis.
The distinctive value constructor vertical bar of the ID equals level the bars with the distinct values of the variable and the vertical axis with relative frequency.
Take a listen to how Psaki dealt with those questions.
Our protocols are in alignment with the highest standards and the guidance of our public health experts. We have a robust infrastructure to ensure compliance with these protocols, and we're asking staff to also monitor themselves for symptoms and stay off campus if they develop symptoms. So the news today is that while breakthrough cases will happen, the vaccines are effective and prevent against serious illness and death. We've seen that statistically across the country, with 99.5% of cases in hospitals being for individuals who are not vaccinated. And we will continue to abide by CDC guidelines.
Now, you heard Psaki run through the protocols that are in place here at the White House and where the president spends most of his time. But I think one of the most interesting things to be monitoring in the next few days, weeks, and perhaps months is the degree to which I've noticed that the president has begun sort of immersing himself with voters, with the general public, in a way he hadn't done in quite a while. Last week, for instance, when he gave that speech in Philadelphia, he spent almost an hour shaking hands, taking selfies with some of those who were in attendance tomorrow. He'll be traveling to Cincinnati, a little bit of a campaign-style trip to sell his infrastructure plans, and we've seen him stop for ice cream, things like that. And so the degree to which the White House is all of a sudden perhaps more concerned about the president's safety will be on display, something worth keeping an eye on.
And your colleague Shannon Pettypiece has a story about possible vaccine mandates. Former White House COVID response coordinator Andy Slavitt telling her, quote, "I think once the vaccines go through full FDA approval, everything should be on the table." I mean, Slavitt still stays in touch with the White House. What are officials saying about this possibility of a mandate?
So it's unlikely that you're going to see the administration impose any federal vaccination mandate on the general public. But what Slavitt may be tipping off here is the degree to which, once we see that this emergency use authorization for these 3 COVID vaccines becomes a permanent authorization once the full vetting process goes through, that what the White House can do, the federal government, is impose a vaccination mandate on federal employees. And there are a lot of them doing things like being screeners at airports, the TSA workers. The federal workforce is significant and all across the country. But otherwise, I think it's more likely that you'll see state and local officials set up vaccination mandates, not for the general public, not the federal government.
Gotcha. Mike, on a lighter note, President Biden hosting the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the White House today. Tom Brady brought the Lombardi Trophy and some jokes. What did he say to POTUS?
An interesting moment, because we remember that Tom Brady had a close relationship with the former president, with Donald Trump. He was a supporter of his. But perhaps because Tom Brady has been to the White House so often,
Graph bar chart, click OK. Categorical variables, chart options, show bias.
Take a listen to this.
Not a lot of people, think that we could have won, and in fact, they think about 40% of people still don't think we won.
I understand.
You understand that, Mr. President?
I understand that.
Yeah. And personally, it's nice for me to be back here. We had a game in Chicago where I forgot what down it was. I lost track of 1 down in 21 years of playing, and they started calling me Sleepy Tom. Why would they do that to me?
Well, the president seemed to take those jokes in stride, but I will note on his behalf that the few times Tom Brady didn't win the Super Bowl, it was against a certain New York football team that beat him twice in the Super Bowl.
All right, Mike Beverly also bringing some football trivia. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day. Our world is facing some big challenges. Chuck Todd breaks them down. A deep dive into a new topic.
Instead of covering all the big stories, we're going to cover one single subject impacting American politics.
Exploring and explaining the critical issues that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 2 are now available on demand on Peacock. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Good evening tonight from Geneva, just hours away from his historic summit. President Biden wants to find common ground. Does Putin need common ground? Over 16,000 unaccompanied children tonight. What's victory look like?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. Our week-long journey begins here in Orlando, Louisville, Cleveland. Our cross-America journey, reporting on an America rebuilding and reimagining a future after the pandemic. Good evening tonight from Geneva, just hours away from his historic summit. Over 16,000 unaccompanied children tonight in custody. It's going to be a challenge to meet that 70% goal. Why is it so challenging?
What is the frequency distribution of qualitative data? What and why is it
They are escaping a number of conditions there.
Reddit.com.
Countries.
They are speaking out against laws that they feel would make it harder for Texas voters to cast their ballot.
There's excitement that we are now turning the corner. We heard the mask mandate and mask guidance coming from the CDC earlier today.
We have a team of correspondents covering this breaking story for us today.
Boss Baby is coming to theaters. Let's roll. And streaming on Peacock the same day.
Is this some kind of a ninja boy band?
The Boss Baby Family Business. Rated PG. In theaters Friday and streaming the same day on Peacock. Go to bossbabymovie.com.
A frequency distribution of qualitative data is a list of
Bezos and crew soaring into space aboard the New Shepard rocket.
distinct values and their frequencies. The frequency is used for programming so that the data they are more compact and easier to understand.
Hey there, Lindsay. It has been quite a day for American exceptionalism. For those who love space, for those who love science, for those who love the American dream, it was extraordinary to watch the maiden human voyage here for Blue Origin. That, of course, is Jeff Bezos' space exploration company. We watched that launch earlier today, and it was phenomenal. And while many people have said, what do I care? I'm not rich like that. This is for billionaires. Money should be spent elsewhere on other things. Jeff Bezos has said, now that he has looked at Earth in the rearview mirror, he wants to devote himself to protecting our planet and doing more. He also said, for all those people at home who think this doesn't affect them, here's what he thinks matters. Jeff Bezos, you are an astronaut now. How does it feel?
It's amazing. You know, there are no words. It was a perfect mission. I'm not talented enough to put this into words. The accelerating G-forces and how that felt your skin pulled back and pushed into the sea.
Explain the difference between frequency and relative frequency.
My brother pointed out in the car back that it's kind of feels like we were almost involved. It's like surprisingly natural. It's effortless. You feel comfortable. It's not weird at all. It's very nice.
You have spent your whole life with this man. In West Texas, you spent time on your grandfather's farm playing Space Cowboys, but this is so much more than boys who wanted to be astronauts. Your brother has been determined to advance space travel. I want to know, what did it feel like to be up there together when you locked eyes?
It was pretty special. First of all, it just meant a tremendous amount to me to be able to represent my mom and dad, our sister Christina, and being able to celebrate lifelong dream come true. And I can tell you, we decided to, a little we did a little high mom in zero G. One of us was upside down in zero G. So hopefully we got it right. We don't know if it came out. We'll have to go again. If it could be high wow if we got it wrong. Or wow high.
This was a dream, but for all those millions of Americans who are watching this, who are saying, this is a joyride, it has nothing to do with me. What did you experience that matters to all
Two
Americans?
datasets that have identical relative frequencies. The frequency distributions have identical frequency distributions. Your answers to S and B. Explain why relative frequency distributions are better than frequency distributions for comparing two data
This
sets.
atmosphere is huge and we can disregard it and treat it poorly. When you get up there and you see it, you see how tiny it is and how fragile it is. We need to take all heavy industry, all polluting industry, and move it into space and keep Earth as this beautiful gem of a planet that it is. Now that's going to take decades and decades to achieve, but you have to start. And big things start with small steps. And we need reusable rocket vehicles. And we need to practice with them. And that's what this summer little tourism mission allows us to do. Is to practice over and over. So we are. This is the very beginning of that, and it's exciting.
Is there anything now that you didn't think yesterday, but now you're saying, I'm going to do this. This is the change that's going to happen next?
So for me, it reinforces my commitment to the climate change, to the environment. I think if you look at it too, we have too much vilification in society today and not enough unity. So we need unifiers, not vilifiers. And when you look out at the planet, there are no borders. There's nothing. It's one planet, and we share it, and it's fragile.
Well, until now, space exploration has been a passion of yours, but not your day job.
True.
Does that change today? Does this become your life's work?
First, two datasets have identical relative frequency distributions do not have identical frequency distributions, and so total number of observations can be divided into two cases. Relative frequency distributions are better than frequency distributions for comparing the datasets, as the relative frequency always lies between 0 and 1, and S provide a standard for comparisons.
I talked to you yesterday, you were, I'm cool, I'm fine. Were you panicked?
No, I was never panicked. I got a little emotional when I was sitting, waiting for the launch and just thinking about my kids and my wife and everything. It was, it's a profound moment. And the training that we went through was fantastic for anything that might be off nominal. But it was a perfect flight, and boy, what an adventure. It was unbelievable. Some of our family members were a little anxious. Yeah. They flipped between wanting to snowboard and our carry luggage and
relative frequency distribution.
I think that's natural. It was a perfectly nominal mission. It was so much fun and meaningful too.
When are you doing it next?
As soon as, how about tomorrow? Let's do it again.
Do you want to do it soon? How soon?
Well, I want to fly a bunch of people, so I'm not going to go
On the
next.
TV binding on the website, we obtained a network for the top 20 prime broadcast TV shows by total viewership for the week ending August 8th.
Your family has a history of space exploration, space work.
Yeah, I definitely thought about Pop. We said that in the council. Yeah, I definitely thought about Pop. He would have been the one, most excited by this and most proud of this, and yeah, we miss him.
Well, your kids are going to be excited too. Thank you both so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, what exactly he does from here, we don't know. When I spoke to him, he was definitely still on the high of being in outer space. But is he going to spend time with
From
Amazon?
NCAA.com, the official website for NCAA sports, we obtained the National Curling Athletic Association Western Champions for the years 1989 to 2013 in the Document Championship history.
For COVID-19. NBC News Now correspondent Priscilla Thompson is in Austin. Priscilla, Clyburn has been lobbying to remove the filibuster from voting rights legislation. What more can you tell us about this meeting?
Right, and we expected that to be a part of the conversation that those Texas Democrats in Washington, D.C. had with Representative Clyburn today. And while it does seem that that came up, it seems that the larger conversation was around other potential avenues where they could sort of gain some traction here, including the possibility of bringing back some of those provisions that were in the original Voting Rights Act, provisions that were eliminated after a Supreme Court decision in 2013, specifically as it relates to pre-clearances and certain states needing to get federal approval before changing their voting laws. The other message that we heard from Texas Democratic lawmakers following that meeting is that they are continuing to have meetings with lawmakers and really doubling down on their efforts to get some sort of action on this as the clock remains ticking on the countdown to this special session, to the end of this special session. I want to play a little bit of what they had to say in that press conference earlier today.
We are committed to visiting every member of the U.S. House and the Senate. We're going to keep engaging the President and the Vice President and our friends in the Biden administration. And we're never going to quit lifting the voices of our constituents. Countless Texans who have fought so hard for the sacred right to vote. We cannot let them down.
And while those lawmakers say that they don't yet have plans to meet with the Republican Texas senators in Washington, D.C., they do have meetings scheduled with two Republican senators tomorrow. That is Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Senator Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania. Lindsay?
Well, and Priscilla, last night during an MSNBC town hall, Texas Democrats spoke about their personal struggles of coming to D.C. for the cause here. I mean, we know a lot of them are leaving families, leaving their homes behind. What were the most powerful parts?
Yeah, you know, we've heard so much of them talking about why they're in D.C. and what they're fighting for. And last night really was a glimpse into the sacrifices that many of them made in order to sort of wage this fight. So we heard from Representative John Busey talking about driving 23 hours from Texas to Washington, D.C. with his pregnant wife and his one-year-old child. We also heard from Representative Jarvis Johnson talking about how he won't allow his son, who is still in Texas, to drive his car because the sergeant at arms in Texas law enforcement could be out looking for these lawmakers who are in D.C. And he is fearful that his son could somehow get caught up in a police encounter as law enforcement is looking for his father. And so those were just a glimpse of some of the sacrifices and things that those lawmakers are considering as they continue to wage this fight.
U.S. Census Bureau divides the states in the United States into 4 regions. The following table gives the region of each of the 50 states.
What then? Because Governor Greg Abbott is already raising the possibility of another special session. Let's listen.
You can obviously tell what the Democrats have done is a disaster of a trip up to Washington, D.C. that has accomplished absolutely nothing. When they get back to Texas, I will be calling another special session and put this back on the agenda, as well as so many other items that are so important to their constituents. Their constituents are getting mighty upset about the fact that their House member is not in the Senate of Texas doing the job they were elected to do.
Well, Priscilla, you talked to some of those constituents, and they appear mixed here on this issue. But any sense of what these Texas Democrats are planning to do if, in fact, and maybe when, the governor calls another special session?
And that's been the big question that no one can seem to answer. But in our town hall last night, Lawrence O'Donnell did press those Democratic lawmakers on exactly that, saying, you know, look, this is a GOP-controlled legislature. The governor has said he will continue to call special sessions. These bills are likely going to come to a vote. And we heard those Texas lawmakers last night acknowledging that and really say that what they're looking for in Washington, D.C. is a backstop, something so that when they do have to take that vote and these bills do become law, which is very likely, there will be a backstop at the federal level. Lindsay?
All right, Priscilla, thank you so much.
This is Today All Day.
Make the most of your day with Today All Day. Get closer to all your friends in Today in a whole new way. All built for your busy life to keep you in the know.
Today in
30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes. Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
I love this question.
Shop today with Joe Martin.
We're helping you shop like never before.
The latest styles from the biggest names and the best prices.
Let's get ready to have some fun.
Today food. Things are heating up in the Today All Day kitchen. Cooking essentials and recipe inspiration. The very best of Today food. All you need and more from your friends on Today.
Only see here on Today All Day.
So you can make the most of your day.
This is the face of excitement.
Ready? Are you ready? Oh, I'm so ready.
Only on Today All Day. Our world is facing some big challenges. Chuck Todd breaks them down. A deep dive into a new topic.
Instead of covering all the big stories, we're going to cover one single subject impacting American politics.
Exploring and explaining the critical issues that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 2 are now available on demand on Peacock.
Olympic dreams crush for some members of Team USA. The games kick off in 3 days, but the normal celebrations are being overshadowed. Several athletes tested
Election
positive for
Commission,
COVID-19, meaning they can't compete. Today, co-host Savannah Guthrie has
publishes a compilation of about statistics for the general election in India on their
some of Team USA's Olympic dreams
official
on hold.
website.
18-year-old
A
Kara
new
Aker,
book
an
provides the
alternate on
frequency
the women's
distribution of the
gymnastics team,
votes
is now
received.
quarantining in a Tokyo hotel after testing positive for COVID. So far, she's asymptomatic. Her parents trying to keep their daughter's spirits up from afar.
Even as an alternate, there's always hope that you might get a chance to compete. So that keeps you going, it keeps you motivated. But now that this results have come back, that hope is gone.
You just feel totally helpless to do anything except try to keep her spirits up and, hug the heck out of her when she gets back. Kara was fully vaccinated before she left for Tokyo. We really went out of our way to do everything we're supposed to do, to follow the protocols. The affiliate KSHB confirming her fellow alternate Leanne Wong is also in isolation, though she's tested negative. The station caught up with both of them at the airport on their way to Tokyo. We'll be close by just in case something happens, and we'll be able to just transfer right into there really fast.